Today we're going to talk about bad gas. This is our agenda. We're going to talk about what to do when bad gas is reported. What in the world is bad gas? How do you prevent bad gas? Equipment that we've already got in place to protect our customers from bad gas. And how to determine if your site really does have bad gas. And how to fix bad gas issues. Then we're going to wrap it all up with a nice, tidy conclusion. As funny as it is to say someone has bad gas, it's a serious issue that every gas station has to worry about. So you're at work, a customer just came up to you and claimed they put bad gas in their vehicle, and it came from your store. So as the manager of the store, what do you do? Bad gas can be broken down into several categories. The first and foremost is contaminated fuel, and that's fuel that has some type of foreign substance in it that doesn't allow the fuel to perform as designed. Normally, those substances are water or debris. So, water is our enemy. You can also have contaminated or bad fuel if you have old fuel, or even a cross drop. Someone drops the wrong type of fuel in the wrong tank. We can break down issues of water and fuel into two categories. Just water, and you can normally see that water in the fuel, or the bugs that water creates. And phase separation is a big issue with ethanol fuels that have water in them. Fuel plus water can give you phase separation. Fuel is now 90% unleaded gasoline and 10% ethanol. Phase separation occurs when the ethanol attaches to water molecules and it leaves you two distinct layers in your storage tank. The top layer being gasoline and the bottom layer being water or an ethanol water mixture. And those don't work well in vehicles.
Phase separation occurs when enough water contaminates an ethanol-blended gasoline, causing the ethanol to attach itself to the water molecules, dropping to the bottom, leaving two distinct layers in the storage tank.
Water can also cause your fuel to have bugs. Some of these bugs are called humbugs or hydrocarbon utilizing microorganism bugs. They can also lead to microbes or algae. Now, algae isn't really algae, it's a form of microbes, but you'll hear a lot of technicians call it algae in your tanks. So even though it's commonly referred to as such, the substance growing in your fuel tank is just bacteria and fungus. But that way you understand the technician is still, he's saying algae, but he's talking about the same things I'm talking about. Areas with higher temperature and levels of humidity are more likely to have issues with algae. And at present, there are 20 different species of diesel bugs, which means they can occur in several different types of environments. But unlike bacteria, algae requires light to survive. Because a fuel tank doesn't have any light, it doesn't have actual algae in it. But ethanol attracts water, and then ethanol plus water creates a bacteria called acetobacter. This acetobacter excretes acetic acid, which then corrodes the components in your tank. Acetobacter causes rust. Rust builds up on metallic surfaces, such as inside your risers, on your ball floats, under any manholes, and it leads to a buildup called tuberculation. So whenever a technician comes and he has to pull your probes for your ATG, the floats on that probe knock off pieces of that rust, and that sinks to the bottom of your tank. Another thing that occurs because of the rust inside the risers is your drop tubes get welded into place. So whenever a technician tries to pull those risers out, they tries to pull those drop tubes out, they don't come out. So you can have symptoms of sludge, debris, and crud in the bottom of your tank show up as fake water alarms. So your floats get stuck on the probe, and whenever a water alarm goes into effect, you go out and you check your tank with a stick, and there is no water because it's the debris in your tank that's actually causing these water alarms. And you'll usually see them cycle. The alarms will go into effect whenever you get a delivery, and then they'll slowly go away. Usually, microbial contamination from water is almost always the result of corrosion of the metal parts of the tanks or the dispensing equipment, and it often leads to sludge or buildup in the bottom of your tank. example, contaminated fuel is old fuel, and that's fuel that's been in the tanks and been stagnant for a long time. The age for a fuel to become old fuel can range from 3 months up to a couple of years. It varies by the type of fuel, the conditions that it's being stored in, if you've added any kind of fuel stabilizers to it, if it gets turned over very often. Contaminated fuel can also be caused by cross drops. This is probably easiest to figure out because if a driver drops wrong fuel into the incorrect tank, your ATG will show you increases in fuel in the wrong tank. Be sure you report this immediately to your HQ Fuels team. Endeavor to prevent bad gas. Your number one objective should be prevent water from getting into your fuel. We do that through a variety of ways. One is our delivery processes. Whenever delivery drivers delivers fuel, they should stick the tanks for water before they deliver to make sure there's no water, and then after they deliver to make sure they didn't deliver any water. Our Veeder-Root ATG should go into alarm and shut down the system as soon as it detects any water. We need to keep our spill buckets empty. We need to keep our sumps clean and empty, because if we allow those to fill up with water, it could eventually drain into your tanks. Water can enter the tanks through condensation. So if you're in a humid environment, close to the ocean, water can build up as condensation in your tanks, and over time it could actually register as an issue inside your tank. Even with all the safeguards we have in place, water still finds its way into the tanks. In an effort to prevent water from getting from our tanks to our customers, we have several safeguards in place with our equipment. So most of our exchange gas stations have filters on the dispensers. And these filters are designed for ethanol fuels, so they should not allow water, phase separated fuel, or debris to pass through these filters to get to our customers' vehicles. But the only way you know these filters are working is to have them changed periodically, and notice if there's any slow fuel issues. Now, normally a slow fuel issue can mean that your filter has gotten clogged up with all the debris. So it's no longer working as a filter, and it can allow debris or water or phase separated fuel to enter the customer's vehicle. We are trying not to allow that. So if you have customers coming in complaining that the dispensers are running slow, take it seriously and address the issue.
Today we're going to talk about slow flow. Have you ever been trying to fill up your vehicle and you'll notice that the nozzle's going very, very, very slow and it frustrates you? What does that actually mean? It could mean that the filters are clogged, perhaps, and need changing. It could be that it's a cold morning and the day is warming up and the pump is still kind of waking up, but it could be that your leak detector has tripped. Now this is a device that's threaded into your pump, and if this device here thinks it's found a leak in the underground line, it will actually restrict the flow and give you what you call slow flow. It's meant to irritate the customer or the attendant to make a notification to the supervisor, because it could be that there is a 3-gallon-per-hour leak in the underground line.
Our ATG has probes in the tanks that are designed to alarm whenever water enters the tanks. These probes are also designed to identify phase separation issues. So if it goes into alarm for water or phase separation, you need to address it. You need to figure out what's going on with your system and make sure it's not just a float. We also have sensors in our sumps. Those are the under dispenser containment sump and the sub-turbine pump sump on top of the tank that are set to alarm or shut down your system if there's any liquids in there. Your sensors at all sites that operate unattended should automatically shut down your site if they go into alarm. Cross drops are results of human error. So what we've done to prevent cross drops is, one, color code all of our lids so that they apply to the types of fuel that go into those tanks. Two, label the areas so that the delivery driver knows they're dropping the correct fuel into the correct tank. Three, managers must keep the keys to these fill points, so that they know they can talk to the delivery driver and you both know that the one you're unlocking is the one that belongs to the fuel that the delivery driver is bringing. Our EOP 3101 has all the guidance for fuel drops in it, so if you need to catch up on any of that or become more familiar with it, please look in EOP 3101 or reach out to your fuels team at headquarters. Here are your cross-drop scenarios. So in case someone drops unleaded or premium fuel into your diesel tank, stop selling fuel from that tank immediately. Close the tank and work with your HQ fuels team to get rid of the fuel. Diesel on unleaded or premium, that's still the same scenario. Stop, close tank, get hold of HQ fuels, unleaded into premium tank. This one's a little different because you want to stop selling fuel because you're no longer selling premium fuel, so you're violating the octane ratings that you've got on the dispensers. You're going to have to close the tank, and now you can either move that fuel to an unleaded tank or add premium or some kind of octane booster to the tank until you can raise the octane levels to the premium octane ratings for your state. And then finally, if you accidentally have premium dropped into an unleaded tank, you can still sell that fuel, but you're selling premium fuel at unleaded prices. So you may want to contact your fuels team to make a final decision on what you want to do with that. The delivery company may accept the risks or accept the expenses of dropping the wrong fuel into the wrong tank, and you may be able to sell it just as unleaded fuel. But again, reach out to your HQ fuels team to make sure what you can do in that situation. Well, even though we've got all these safeguards in place and we're doing everything right, we've had a customer come in and report bad gas. So first, you tell them to file a report with the installation's lawyer, and then you need to start the process of figuring out if you are selling bad gas. There's several things you can do to help yourself figure out if you have bad gas. The first is check your VITA route for water in the tanks or any kind of history of alarms for water in the tanks. You can use a stick that is a tank measuring stick. You can coat it in water finding paste and then stick the tank with it. And if it comes up with any changes of color, then you might have water in your tank or you might have phase separation. Have you had any history of issues with slow flow from the dispensers? Uh, if there is a chance that the fuel is bad, have a technician come out and completely sample the system. Side note, if you only have one customer reporting bad gas, um, that's usually not an indication that your tank is bad gas, because if you've got bad gas, it's going to affect every customer that fills up from that point. So it would impact multiple vehicles, not just one. Um, if you've gone through the previous steps and you don't see that you have any issues, there probably is not any bad gas in the tanks. What do you do if you've gone through all these steps and there are signs of bad gas? Well, first notify the HQ fuel team so that they can stop any future deliveries from coming to your site, and then call Greg Smith at real estate at headquarters because he's got a lot of history working with sites that have had bad gas issues. Generally, the steps that a technician should do whenever you have them on site to check for bad gas. They need to drop what's called a bacon bomb down to the bottom of the tank and then take a sample from the bottom of the tank up and do it from multiple points on top of the tank so that they can get a really good reading and they can actually see if there are any issues. Sometimes your tanks are tilted from one end to the other so that one end is lower. So this testing at each end will actually assess the whole tank instead of just a spot sec. Have them send these samples to a lab. They can do some analysis on the sample and make sure there's no contaminants in it. The technician should give you a plan for how to clean the tanks if there is indeed bad fuel in it. Some of your options are to polish the fuel, which is basically just pulling the fuel out, running it through a filtration system, and putting it right back into your tank. Adding biocides, in case there's microbes in there, sometimes they'll add biocides to kill off those microbes. But even if they do that, sometimes the microbes will then settle in the bottom of the tank and have a debris build up in the bottom called gunk or sludge or debris. And then you can clean the tanks. Actually physically have some kind of system set in place that they actually scrub the insides of the tanks. The steps your technicians should also take, they should change out all the filters because the old filters may be cruddy from all the debris that was in there. Purge the lines from the dispensers to the tanks. Purge the hoses for each dispenser because those hoses may have bad fuel in them, and then retest the tanks of fuel for contamination after they've gone through all the previous steps. In conclusion, there are always going to be issues with people reporting bad gas. Sometimes they won't report it directly to you, sometimes they'll go straight to social media, and so you need to be ready to figure out what is going on with your system if there are accusations of your site having bad gas. Contaminated gas and bad gas comes in many forms. As long as you keep the water out of your system, the gas should stay relatively clean. Um, the older your tank, the more debris can be built up on the bottom of it. So you want to keep your equipment in good shape. Make sure you follow good operational practices. Follow what's in EOP 3101. Follow what's in EOP 3603. Make sure that you're doing the things that will keep your site safe. And try to avoid being down for a long time. And if you are going to be down, if you can move fuel from the tank that is down to another tank that's being used, you can preserve the life of the fuel so that you can actually get money still for that fuel instead of having to dispose of it. So if you come into a situation where your site has to be temporarily down for any reason, and there's another one of our sites close to you, you could send the fuel to them. You could actually move fuel from one tank to another tank. And just remember that bad gas is an APF expense. We've had the military's lawyers reach out to us and tell us that this is an APF expense. So if you run into a situation that you have bad gas, try and get the military to pay for it. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions on this topic or any other UST or gas station related topic, please reach out to me and let me know. I'll be available through emails or text messages. Thank you.